Thank you. Good morning. I've done this stewardship witness thing before. Last time I did it almost 20 years ago. Was like this in church on Sunday morning. Oh, thank you. Helpful. Great way to start, huh? Anyway, I was in church on Sunday morning, 20 years ago-ish. Everything went fine at the 9 o'clock, but at the 11:15, it turned out that the preacher that Sunday was Jesse Jackson. And as is his style, he preached for close to an hour. After that, as my time came and I was making my way up here to the chancel, I passed our verger, Betty Weigel, over here, and she whispered to me, "Cut it short, we've got to get out of here." And I was like, cut it short, but this is my story. Thankfully, I'm not under that time constraint this morning, but I promise you I won't preach for an hour. One of the resources that's available to us here at All Saints is something called Transformational Journeys, where we go off to someplace unfamiliar and perhaps somewhat uncomfortable and go through some experience that transforms us. Pushes us to a new and hopefully more evolved and enlightened place. I've been on a couple of those, one locally, taking a tour of Father Greg Boyle's Homeboys Industries, and another one spending 10 days in China and seeing how people experience the holy there in very different ways from what we're used to. But really, the 34 years that I've been here at All Saints has been a transformational journey without my ever needing to have gone anywhere. I need to tell you a little history for that to make sense. I came to All Saints with my partner Donald in 1985 after long lapses from church for both of us, almost 15 years in my case. In the spring of '86, we did what was then called the Covenant class, more recently called the New Member class, and we became members of the parish and got to know a few people in that process. Shortly after that, within a couple of months, Donald became quite ill. He was admitted to the hospital with pneumonia, diagnosed with HIV, and died 12 days later. Obviously, AIDS was a very different disease in those days. I suddenly found myself surrounded with all of the resources that this amazing place can offer. Clergy, staff, and some of you, some people that I didn't even know at the time, lifted me up and carried me through those dark days of grief. As I got back on my feet, I began to get more and more involved, thinking I was somehow paying back for all the support I had received. Some of you have heard me say that before I came to All Saints, I didn't know the difference between a 501c3 and a 401k. I had never really been involved in anything larger than myself and my small circle of friends and family. But just 5 years after Donald's death, I found myself as the president of the board of directors of the AIDS Service Center, an organization that began here as a ministry of the church, with the buck stops here responsibility for a $3 million a year program with a staff of 40 and serving close to 1,000 clients. Talk about transformational. That was a huge time of growth for me personally, and it became clear to me that no matter how much I gave of my time and talents, I was always getting more out of it than I was putting in. Stewardship, giving to the church, has always been a part of my life as far back as I can remember, taking my little envelope with a quarter in it to Sunday school when I was a child. So when Donald and I started coming to All Saints, it was just natural to write a check every week. And as I listened to those lessons about the tithe being the historical standard of giving that God expects, I began to look at my giving as a percentage of my income. It was clear that I had a long way to go to get to 10%. And it took years, but by increasing a little bit each year and making that gift to God a priority in my spending, eventually I made it. Once again, I thought I was giving back, in some way repaying God for all the blessings I'd received. And once again, God had a different lesson in mind for me, another transformation. It turns out that giving generously is a gift to yourself. There's a joy in it. It feels good. It feels right. It honors God for the abundance that we enjoy in our lives, not in a way that pays God back, but that extends God's grace to others, that helps others know God's abundant love. That tithe is now the basis of my giving, the beginning. Whatever else I give, either to the church or to other community organizations, is above and beyond that. Now, I've made my pledge to All Saints this year already. I hope you have too, but if not, please do it during this month where we're focusing on giving. And if you're not tithing already, I hope you'll consider joining those of us who do, especially as you think about the abundance that God has blessed you with, at least beginning that journey toward the tithe. Take those steps to increase, as Susan Russell might say, an inch at a time. Thanks.